to. Same as I can refer to Marxism and not be talking about it exactly as Marx wrote 100 or so years ago. And my response, and who are you to say that the values of modern capitalism won't lead to that of an RBE given the mathematical reality of capitalism? You are being quite condescending in your accusations of ignorance, just so you know, and I don't appreciate it. Just because you don't agree, it gives you no right to be pompous. No response, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that you can't look at it as any kind of scientific theory, because there will always be other forces, other opinions, other powers at work. My response, such as, her response, I haven't accused you of ignorance, but obviously if Marxism isn't your interest, you won't have read much of the theory. My response, and I can say the same thing about your lack of interest in TZM. The difference between us here is that I actually care about knowing all about information that opposes or purports to oppose the understandings I have. It's what learning is all about. And can you prove these other powers overriding influence as different to the direction of an RBE? And her response, such as other opinions of how best to use the technology, how to run a country, how best to utilize the resources. And my response, like I said, opinions are just that. If you try to challenge a calculator's resultant quantity with your opinion, what would you achieve? And her response, of course I can't prove it, but I'm not suggesting that I can. What I'm saying is that any political philosophy, and TZM or RBE is a political/economic philosophy, is subject to forces that already exist and counters that will arise. Nothing is perfect and nothing works exactly as it was planned to, because people are not just cogs in a machine. My response, what would you rather go with? Opinion, which is unreliable and subjective, or empirically valid data, which can be verified and re-verified and duplicated? Her response, it depends what you're talking about, but educated opinion is a far better indicator than data when you're talking about people and politics. My response, TZM is not a political philosophy. To prove that, you have to define politics and prove TZM fit into that definition. It is, however, an economic one, as per the true definition of economy. Look up in the dictionary and look up the Greek source of the word. Keep in mind here that we're talking about TZM here, myself out of the two of us being the best versed in TZM. Her response, you know, your arguments are really very tiresome, because I don't understand if you don't understand something, you fall back on ridiculous word definitions. I've told you what I think. I'm educated and intelligent enough to feel my thoughts are valid. I've read TZM's ideas, and frankly I think a lot of it makes sense, and a lot of it is the kind of puerile conspiracy theory utopian nonsense I stopped believing in or hoping for when I was a teenager. As far as I'm concerned, thinking it will work is akin to believing in fairies, because although the theory is lovely, you have taken no account of what is already out there and how that system responds to threats. So yes, now I'm going to be condescending. Go away, find out a bit about how the world works, how it's responded to threats, and then come back and talk to me. My response, as I thought, you're getting frustrated that I'm not bowing to your perceived authority. And her response, you're the best versed in TZM, but maybe not on some of the other stuff. You obviously know your stuff more than I possibly do, because if you believe in something, you'll go that extra mile to think about how it works, etc. There's not that on the website, there's just information. My response, well, yeah, I'm pleased TZM materials don't contain beliefs. Believing in something is inferior to understanding something. When you have viewed all the audio and video material, along with the supporting material, then you can tell me what is possible and what is not. Her response, why should I have to listen to audio and video? It wasn't small gaps and lacks of answers, it was large ones. And my response, well, it's the price of learning. It's the same thing you ask of me to read on Marx to know what I'm talking about. But of course, you don't have to know what you're talking about, do you? And yet I do. You see the hypocrisy in your position here? And her response, of course I have to know what I'm talking about, but I don't need to know every last details of something in order to form an opinion about it. I know how to analyze what I find, and I find it lacking, as any other political philosophy is lacking. And my response, and if you don't have to know every detail apparently to sufficiently fashion a mere opinion and to enforce that opinion, then don't demand that I have to. Simple. As I thought you were treating this as a debate. A debate is a game, not an experience of sharing and learning. And her response, I don't really care what you think I know about TZM. Of course it's a debate, and I refuse to have a battle of wits with an unarmed person. You don't understand what I'm saying, you're not prepared to bother with it, so why should I? From the way you're reacting, it sounds like TZM is some kind of brainwashing, because you become very defensive. And my response, if you cannot disprove what I'm saying, then just admit it. Don't condescend at me. And her response, I can tell you to learn more about the things you're trying to change and not believe all the conspiracy theory nonsense I think you're saying. My response, there are no conspiracies. Stop being so ridiculous. Corrupt behavior is the system. I'm illustrating to you how ridiculous your conspiracy theory nonsense statement is. That isn't even the same as an RBE. And yes, I'm sorry to say it, but you are claiming that you are right and I am wrong. Of course, everyone thinks they're right. Our cultural persuasions perpetuate the egotistical position of claiming informational authority and rejecting the possibility of this not being the case. But we have to move away from that. That is why science humbles you. It holds on to nothing and changes constantly. I know you're not saying these things, but you're certainly acting like it. Her response, I think I'm saying that you should look at the world more as a look what is going on and how the status quo has reacted to threats thing rather than a condescending thing. Capitalism is a very powerful thing and it sort of reacts like a wounded animal if it's threatened. Hence there are lies and misconceptions and workarounds, etc. That's not me saying you're misguided. I'm just saying have a look at the power of the system TZM is looking to expand into. And my response, TZM is not advocating per se the implementation of an RBE within the current system. I don't know whether I have asserted this to you before, but maybe I just needed to once again. And the conspiracy theory nonsense accusations really damage the viability of your arguments. It really makes you very combative and accusatory. In her response, any new system has to take into consideration the existing one, because the remnants will always be there. And my response, and I agree, as Buckminster Fuller once said, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model which makes the current existing model obsolete. Now response, if he said that and he's referring to the totality of the global system and the power of the global media in the capitalist world, then he's a fool. I am not a supporter of TZM, and I would assume that the majority of people who listen to podcasts, watch videos, etc. are either interested or already supporters. That's logical, isn't it? And my response, my podcasts are downloaded by all sorts of people, not just those who agree. I get emails about them all the time. And nope, not logical. How else do you think the people who haven't the first clue of what TZM even stands for get to find out what TZM advocates? By watching the videos, listening to the audio, reading the written material perhaps? And her response, but the people who are just finding out about TZM are obviously interested. That's what I was saying. Your podcasts, etc. are going out to people who have an interest in the movement. Either they've just heard about it or are researching or are already supporters. That is what I said. And my response, nope, believe it or not, we encourage you to consider yourself a supporter only when you fully understand it and hence agree with it. You cannot seriously consider yourself a supporter of something you don't fully understand, can you not? And that's the end of the exchange there. Obviously, the exchange wasn't really going anywhere because it was becoming quite combative. As I said earlier, the end of the exchange did result in me having to block this individual because from then on it sort of descended into this circular argument about opinion, and it just wasn't really going anywhere, and she started to mount a lot of logical fallacies and personal insults and such, and I just had to just cut the discussion short. But essentially, what did we learn from that exchange? Well, that there's a big difference between Marxism and a resource-based economic model. I guess that's one thing that we've learned. What else would we say we've learned? That arguing with belligerent people doesn't really have any effect. Yeah, I'd agree with that statement. But obviously, as you can tell with a lot of these podcasts in this series that I'll be bringing you, the kind of people that I have interacted with about this are quite belligerent. I mean, I myself, I've always been tossing back and forth whether or not to even entertain these kinds of people whatsoever, or whether we need to at least try, but it gets to a certain point, and then we have to think to ourselves, actually, wait a minute, no, this isn't going anywhere. Let's just cut off the interaction right there. But it's hard to find out where that line is. I mean, logical fallacies aren't always very easy to spot. I mean, even for those who are well educated in logical fallacies. But that's the thing. I mean, how I've conducted myself in these kinds of exchanges. I'm a human being. I can be, I can be having a bad day or whatever. So, I dare say there are some people who will send me, critical messages about these exchanges, but it's all a learning process. I mean, this exchange that I just read out to you guys, this occurred probably maybe a year or two ago. So, there's obviously a difference in the things that I will be saying now that I was saying back then. I mean, there's a few of the even the statements that I said there that I don't completely agree with now, because obviously I've changed along with transforming information. But anyway, that's the end of the podcast for now. I have no idea what I'm going to be bringing you guys next time. So I guess it's just a luck of the draw, I suppose. But yeah, I'll be bringing you more of these exchanges in the future. So let me know what you thought of this, whether you have any feedback for me. But thanks very much for listening. Take care, guys. Bye bye.